Hello, everyone. Welcome on into OneSoccer.ca. You're watching OneSoccer Today. Andy Petrollo, Oliver Platt, Gareth Wheeler with you. What a busy week that just flew by on OneSoccer. And we have more to come with the start of the Canadian Premier League playoffs. But before we get to that, we need to look back on the two games that we just had on our station over Thanksgiving weekend, which were the Canadian women playing in a couple friendlies. They were in the south of Spain. They faced Argentina on Thursday. That was a 2-0 victory for them. And then they faced Morocco on Canadian Thanksgiving Monday, a 4-0 victory in that game. Ollie, if you were to look at these two, and I get, the competition, we're talking about 31st ranked Argentina, 76th ranked Morocco. But is there something that Bev Priestman learned about her squad, learned from these two games that she can actually apply for World Cup preparation?
I think the big one for me would be that she learned she has real competition at the number 9 position. This is, again, we've talked about it with a change in formation. This is almost a new position for her to have to fill. I don't think Christine Sinclair is going to play up front as the out and out striker. She'll be in the number 10 role, as we've seen in the last window. So there's an open spot here, and Jordan Heitzman is going to have a crack at it for sure. She's playing regular football now. OL Reign doing well there, scoring some goals, exactly what we wanted to see from her after that move from PSG. But you have to say that Evelyn Vienne, admittedly against weaker opposition, really impressed in this window. Involved in almost everything good that Canada did, scoring goals, creating goals, playing just with a real natural aggression and attacking instinct, I think, that this team has sometimes lacked. So, look, she's doing it for her club in Sweden. She's done it at this kind of international level. Now we need to see the step up, hopefully in the next window against a stronger opponent, see if she can carry it through. But she's putting a really impressive club season together. And I think it was really encouraging to see that carry over, at least initially, with the women's national team.
That's going to be the biggest conversation coming out of this window, but I'm not sure if Bev Priestman learned anything. And that was the question, because if you're playing this competition and you're not playing the best of the best, then how much are you learning about your attacking options? It's good that they can score goals in games like this. If you watched, the competition wasn't the best. There was all kinds of chances. I agree with you, Ollie, and it's nothing against these players themselves. I thought that they all did really well. They all offered something, brought something to the table. Thus is the state of the Canadian attacking line. There are positions to go out there and win and to gain over the next 10 months heading into the World Cup. But did Bev Priestman learn anything? I'm not quite sure about that. I think we'll learn much more on October 22nd and the World Cup draw than what we actually did in this window once we find out the opponents that they're playing and how this team should proceed moving forward.
Yeah, and to your point though about up front, Ollie, because what's been also the one knock we've had with Jordan Heidema, which I think a lot of things can change now that she's finally getting regular minutes in NWSL action with OL Reign, but that she was scoring all these goals against weaker opponents.
Yeah.
Now the case is also being made for Evelyn Vienne. She showed that against weaker opponents. But now we need to start seeing the tougher opponent. We'll get to that in just a moment because I do want to pick your brains. There's quite a few windows here before the World Cup where the Canadians can be back in action and who you ideally would like to see them play against. But maybe you already said it, Ollie. Who was the best player in this window for you?
Yeah, it has to be Vienne. I thought there was some good, encouraging performances across the park. Lacasse did well. Jade Rose, I was impressed with again. Again, it's not a particularly difficult test in terms of opponent, in terms of what Morocco offered as an attack. But I thought she came in. Coyne in the first game was very good and really changed the kind of dynamic of that game. So you can go all over the pitch. I think Leon as well, even though she didn't score in this window, was consistently a threat in the way that we've been seeing over the past year or so, really. But Vienne, again, like I said, just involvement in all aspects of the attacking play. That I thought was a really well taken goal. It's not easy to take that ball coming in, kind of open up your body and find the far corner. So I was really impressed with what she brought. I thought she was a player who, compared to when we've seen her in the past for Canada, was on a different level in terms of her confidence in what she was doing and the assertiveness with which she was playing.
Jessie Fleming is always Canada's best player for me now. She just is. She's the best player on this team right now, which is kind of funny. No Christine Sinclair with the team again. Can we definitively say that this is not Christine Sinclair's team anymore? Like, I think we might be at that point. Sinclair scored what 3 goals over the last 2 years for this team, plays a different role. And I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way, that it's
Mhm.
not. Of course, from a leadership, the GOAT perspective, of course, she has a massive influence on this team. But in terms of the way that this team plays on the field and driving them forward and taking them to the next level, it's going to rest with players like Jessie Fleming. To the previous question as well, what we didn't learn from this window is where Ashley Lawrence should be playing in this Canadian team, because she is the team's best player that's not named Jessie Fleming right now. She hasn't played the last 4 games for the national team. And that's something that we didn't learn. Could Ashley Lawrence play in central midfield alongside Jessie Fleming in that double pivot to make things even stronger in that position? I don't think we learned that because the back line, the defensive four, were rarely tested
Mm.
at all. So we don't know where the vulnerability is. We don't know where the best position for players like Lawrence and Becky may be. So that's a little bit frustrating coming out of this window. And you hope in future games that some of these questions are absolutely answered.
Well, I have a feeling I know what Gareth is going to say about this one, but I'm still going to ask it, right? And that is when it comes to defense. And if we've learned anything about the defense, if they get enough credit, and I get it, because once again, we're going to go back to, well, were they really tested, especially in that game against Argentina? I mean, Kaylin Sheridan and company, they were on lawn chairs, for
Yeah.
most of that game. But they are 8-1-1 in their last 10 matches. Just 2 goals conceded. Ollie, I know we briefly had this conversation in the post-game show yesterday about what that back line is going to look like. Because also, again, so you mentioned no Ashley Lawrence, she's been injured. No Vanessa Gilles, she's been injured as well. But now you have Jade Rose, who's come on in, this 19-year-old who's looked really good. So I guess I can still ask, do you think the back line has been given enough credit? But also, what does that back line even look like, Ollie?
Yeah, it's an interesting one now. I think with the composition at centre back, Vanessa Gilles will come back in and play a big role, you'd think. I think, look, as much as you'd expect them to keep clean sheets in this game, Canada consistently just smothers teams and doesn't give up any chances at all in these types of games. And there's something to be said for that, right? Like, you should give them credit for that where it's due. But I think there's some interesting choices there. Becky certainly, I think, is a fallback in games like those now because she just gives you the ability to get an extra attack-minded player in the lineup. Lawrence, I still think will play fullback as well, but particularly with Jade Rivera out long term, like I just don't think there's going to be a ton of opportunity for Bev Priestman to test her in midfields in the lead up to the World Cup because they're going to need her at fullback with Rivera out. So I'd be looking more at centre back, I think, where that Kadisha Buchanan and Vanessa Gilles partnership is still first choice for now, I think. But I do think there are 2 players in Zadorsky and Rose that are legitimately pushing them.
Yeah. And just because, by the way, Canada's defending, and that's not just the back four, but from front to back and back to front are not underrated. They get all the credit they deserve. They are the reason why Canada are gold medalists. So they get plenty of credit for what they do. Just a quick note on that. Just because some of your best players play center back and you have 4 center backs, I think that we all rate, doesn't mean that you play 3 at the back.
No.
I think that this team, you have to play 4 at the back. Like, it's a good problem to have having depth at that position, but you don't change your team based on that. This team needs more numbers and more players going forward in attacking positions.
All right, so let's end on this because we know we can see the women again next month. Ollie, if you could pick Canada's next friendly and where they should play this.
Matchmaker, Oliver Platt.
Who and where?
Well, like I have kind of a more realistic scenario, and then I have my kind of ideal scenario. So realistically, like I said it on the post-game show, playing one of the European teams that they didn't play earlier in the year would be good. Sweden, Netherlands come to mind, France, a team like that. But if you're asking me for my dream scenario, I would love to bring the European champions to Canada. I would love a home game, firstly.
Yeah.
To actually play in Canada. I don't care where it is, Vancouver, Toronto, wherever you want to put it, somewhere else. I'm not fussy on that. But bringing a top team back to Canada and playing in front of the Canadian fans, I think would be easily my number 1 pick. England would be fantastic, obviously. There's a few links between these 2 teams now with the coaching staffs and so on. Club teammates as well. But really any kind of top caliber European opponent, I think coming to a Canadian stadium would be fantastic for the program.
Yeah, it's the Lionesses for sure. They're the buzz team in world football today. They just are.
Mhm.
You know, they're must see TV. I don't even care if the game's in the UK, Ollie. Get the Voyagers traveling over to England. Like, you know
Wembley
that
would be
there'll
all
be
right.
yeah, you know there'll be a packed stadium. And like, look, the Women's Super League is growing by leaps and bounds. These players are now household names. These are the types of teams that you want to be playing against and have like a little bit of a knock-on effect to, hey, guess what? We beat you the last time we played, and we at the Olympics ended up being gold medal champ. I know it's Great Britain versus England, but a lot of these players still featured
Yeah,
in that side. So,
exactly.
look, like that's the matchup that you want. Again, stylistically, I think that there'll be much more to say on this after the World Cup draw takes place. So you actually
Mhm.
know who your opponents
Yeah,
are going to be.
true.